Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, and in today's episode, I have an amazing guest with us today. This is Paula. She is the grief guru. So, Paula, can you share a brief overview of your personal journey from being a suicidal abuse survivor to becoming a grief guru?
Yes, I certainly can. Thank you very much for having me here, all the way here in Wales, UK. Wow,
Yay!
your reach is amazing. Okay. Yeah, so the woman you see before you is, you would never have recognized me 30 years ago. I was a broken, terrified um, shell of a woman. I had been abused from the age of 7 by various people. Um, and from the age of 17 to 21, I was in a very abusive relationship where I was beaten and sexually assaulted regularly, verbally abused, mentally abused, every kind of abuse you can imagine, really, until finally I had the guts to try and escape. And sadly, he came home early and caught me and attempted to kill me. Um, and I survived that. Thankfully, I don't know what it was that stopped him. He was trying to strangle me. It was. I don't want to go into. I don't want to trigger anybody, but it was pretty, nasty. Um, but I managed to get away, and I found my husband, and he was my rock. He was my absolute everything. But sadly, even within that, even though you've got someone who is ready to save you, I wasn't ready to save myself. And so the self-harming started, the suicides, I think I tried 7 times. I've taken enough pills to knock an elephant over, I would think. But I'm still here. And it started to amaze me at some point. Why the hell am I still here? What is it that is I got quite angry actually because I wanted the
Yeah.
pain to stop. Um, and then my last suicide attempt, I did actually die and they brought me back. But um, sadly, this is the irony. I was trying to take my own life because I couldn't deal with all the abuse memories and all the stuff that had happened to me at that point. And at that point, I was 26. Um, and the ambulance man actually sexually abused me in the back of the ambulance, thinking that I was
Wow.
going to die anyway. So what the hell? Um, but nothing came of that because there was no proof of that. So that kind of spurred me on to sort of hang on a minute, I can't keep doing this
Right.
cycle of self-harm, this cycle of death, life. Yeah, I had to make a decision, and I made that decision to live. Um, so one day I just walked into the nearest psychiatric hospital and I just said, "Do not let me leave until you are convinced that I'm ready to live." And it took a hell of a lot of guts to do that. I can't even describe how that was for me at the time. I loved my husband so much, and I knew we were supposed to be together. But the pain, the horror, everything. Every time I closed my eyes, it was always there, and I just had to try and find a way of living it. And so they did. I mean, it was a horrible place to be, but I was there for 2.5 months, and eventually I told them everything about what had happened. And once I unloaded, it was like this huge weight. I was
Yeah.
ready to live again. I was ready. Um, and then not long after I came out of the hospital, I got pregnant with our son, which was amazing. It was like, this was it. This is the start of life. This is it. This is it.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready to be a mother. I'm ready to be a wife. And my son died when I was just 38 weeks pregnant, which was can't even describe to you how, I mean, any mother whose child has died will understand the devastation that brought.
Right.
And yeah, the whole kind of thing, just, and then yeah, so from that it was trying to claw back to life from
Right.
that. Yeah, really. And I did, and it was actually my son's death and the fact that he had survived for so long, because when he was born, they realized he had Pato syndrome, which is a very, very rare disease. So sadly, again, everything seemed to be against us. 3 years later, we found out that the hospital had actually kept his body to experiment with. Um, and that was just grief all over again. It was the horror of it,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So, and during this time, I had a daughter who has special needs. So our lives were very dark for a
Yeah.
long, long time. And but it was my son whose name was Jack. I'd like to mention my son if that's okay, Jack.
Aw. Hi,
And
Jack. I know he's probably here with
and it,
us.
it was the fact that he survived 38 weeks against all the odds. And
Yeah.
I just started to think, if something so small, somebody so special
Yeah.
can fight to live that long, who the hell am I to say no to life? Who
Right.
who 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 am I to say no? So it was that really pushed me to become a therapist, become everything that I've ever wanted to be, an author. I've won awards all around the world. Um, I've if I want to learn something, I'll go and learn it.
Right.
You know. So I'm a therapist. I'm a holistic therapist. I'm a workshop facilitator. I'm a drumming therapist. I'm a grief. I became a grief expert over 20 years because, obviously, from my own experiences.
Right.
And now I taught people how to become grief therapists. I just everything. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, which actually was quite a long nutshell. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
That
Yeah.
was that's it ish.
Yeah. I was going to say, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that with us. I know that can be hard, especially because even though that you've healed through that or you've worked through that, it doesn't ever make it easier. um, you know, just being empathic as I am, I could feel your pain, even though I have a different experience. I never really realized that it was grief for me. It was all, that pain. And it's just like that, I've had multiple near death experiences, triggered by myself. Right. So it's like, I definitely understand where it feels like, having my own daughter and it's like, this was my purpose to live 4 years ago, it never really made it. I feel like there are not that many people, I feel like now, lately are having the conversation about suicide and prevention and all of that stuff. But if you've never really experienced that, you don't know. Like if you were to go, like if I were to tell my parents at the time, that I was having suicidal thoughts or I don't want to be here anymore, that type of thing, they would probably just put me in this hospital and they would probably not like really help me. So that's why I didn't express and talk about my thoughts. I went to a really dear friend that helped me through a lot of things, emotional healing, energetic healing, and realizing like I wasn't safe to talk about it with my family. Right. And I just recently started talking about it, like on this platform or just like with other people because I feel like I feel safer now to talk about it. That's been 4 years ago, and it's not something that I'm like, harmed myself. But I definitely can resonate. And I think a lot of people listening can resonate with grief and loss. And I always think to myself, I feel like losing a child is probably, or a parent, I think it's probably the hardest thing that you would ever have to go through. Now, I'm fortunate that I have not lost a child or a parent. I've lost a grandparent that I looked at it as a parent, but that would be the closest thing that I can relate to that. I know the other listeners, especially some of my clients, have lost kids, and I know, and I
Yeah.
can't. I can empathize and I can understand, but I don't know that amount of pain, right? So, thank you for being
Yeah.
vulnerable and sharing that.
No, that's absolutely fine. It's grief, sadly, it's not talked about.
No,
It's whispered in corners. It's whispered behind, it's almost like it's like the boogeyman, if you say it out loud, it's going to come and get you.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
amount of people I've spoken to over the years who will say, they'll mouth the word, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can say the D word,
Yes.
it's not going to just come out and grab you. Or
Right. Yeah.
people don't want to say the word suicide or taking their own life because they
Yeah.
think, well, if we mention it, they might go and act on it.
Right.
No, you can't make them do anything.
Right.
If it's already there in their mind, and then they're going to do it anyway. And
Right.
sadly, that so many people come to me and they feel like they are responsible somehow for somebody's death.
Yeah.
And unless you are directly responsible for someone's death, then you're not. At the end of the day, it's their life. They will
Right.
do whatever it is that they choose to do with it.
Right.
And it's like people say to me, well, if someone had come to you when you were feeling suicidal and self-harming, and they'd said, don't do it, would you have stopped? Well, of course I wouldn't.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know because
It's like you
I'd
want to do
made
it
my
more.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was my life to take, and I thought in those moments that I was doing the world a favor
Yeah.
by not being here anymore.
Yes.
And there was nothing that anybody could have said to me at that moment to convince me otherwise. Nothing.
Yeah.
So but it is trying to convince those that are left behind who are having to deal with that trauma. And it can take as long as it takes, but yeah, people do get there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
hope for
and
people.
you're a prime example of, and so am I too, that, it takes a lot of hard work, it takes dedication, it takes support, it takes counseling, therapy. Like therapy was something for me that did not work. I tried everything, and working with an energy healer, working with somebody that was very spiritual, very like, let's heal these traumas, let's heal these wounds. Like, you know, a therapist just telling me, no, a holistic therapist, I think she might have been holistic therapy, but it was not like, okay, sit down and write this and sit down, like the typical Western medicine, therapy, because that never worked for me because my mom stuck me in therapy. She stuck me like, with all these people that would just try to feed me medicine. And I'm just like, this is putting a band-aid on it. Like, then I stopped taking medicine because I was like, I'm not taking this. Like, this is amplifying my thoughts. These are making me have darker thoughts. Like, it's not, I need, like, if people are like, that's the thing too, when people are asking for help, they don't need, these doctors to just be like, this is your problem, or let's talk about your problem, here's a pill, like, because that's not going to fix it, and that's just going to make, antidepressants only work for a short amount of time. Like, it's the deeper work with like the actual therapy and healing that I've noticed. Not that I can speak about medical advice, but like, that's just from my experience what I've noticed. And I actually was just on a grief, there was an event that I was invited to speak about grief through human design, and I have healed my own wounds through my own human design, but she had this event because grief isn't spoke about. It's, and sometimes I realized my own therapist, like my own therapist and my own energy healer had said, I think you're addicted to the grief about it, like around, what you've been through. And I was like, that's interesting to look at it that way. And it is true, because I was addicted to the shame. I was addicted to like constant, those, victim mentality mindsets and all that stuff. And I didn't realize that until having that awareness was like, wow, people really are addicted to that grief around it. And to understand that is amazing. It was amazing for me. And I think a lot of other people that I talked to. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have I've been looking at a lot of grief groups, on Facebook and various places, and you do come across a lot of people who will say the words, um, I will never get over my grief. I
Yes.
will be grieving for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it's not my place to challenge that unless you want to be challenged on that. But I understand that. I do understand it. You know,
Yeah,
when you're in it, it's almost impossible to see the other side of the rainbow. You know,
right.
it's impossible to even contemplate life. It's
Yeah,
impossible to contemplate happiness, joy, smiling, sex, you know, anything. It's
right,
impossible,
right,
you know, when you're in that, you know, and I really hear you about what you were saying about that just talking about something, it didn't quite resonate. You needed to the spiritual side of things,
right,
absolutely, because and that's what I do. Because I learned very quickly when I was counseling people that talking just wasn't enough. It kind of constricted them to this. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying counseling doesn't work. For some people, it actually, yeah, fine, it does. But what
right,
I find time and time again is it's never, ever just about the grief.
right,
Ever. I've never had a client where it's just about the grief. It's always something else as well. It's whether
right,
that's learnt behavior, whether that is some kind of trauma that they've not dealt with in the past. It can be absolutely anything. And if all they're there for is to talk about their grief, then it's basically, yeah, we're going to stick a plaster on that and hope for the best, cross our fingers. But
right,
you haven't gone deeper into your healing. So I started doing things like incorporating writing with my clients, incorporating phototherapy, incorporating, I'm a drumming therapist, so I'd incorporate drumming therapy. I would incorporate music therapy. Anything that would widen their creativity and widen their healing way. You know, so
right,
if that didn't work, let's try this then. See how deep we can go with this. You know, and I realized very quickly that if you heal the mind, body, and spirit, which is
yeah,
very, very, very important,
yeah,
then you heal the whole person. You can't
right,
heal one without the other. You know,
right.
so yeah, I absolutely hear you about that. It's great that you found your own way there, that your own intuitive way of and that sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. Lately I feel like with my own healing, because I often thought of like if I just get to this place, you know, I'll feel better. And it
Yeah.
was like years went by and I was like, I just feel so unfulfilled. And then you could tell in my body I lost a lot of weight. And I liked how I looked on camera or, in a picture, but I knew that I could look in my eyes and say, gosh, that girl looks so sad still. And it was like I was still, I was my business was successful. Anything, my daughter was healthy, but my mental health wasn't. It was like I still was depressed. I still felt like body shaming myself. And it's just like, if this just got better, and it was just like, there was just like this aha moment again that I had that I was like, wait a second. Like I've, 2 years has gone by. I have this huge growth. People would notice. And it was just like, I didn't notice of myself. And then it was like, I have to start working on my mental health again, kind of going back into like where I started. And it was like, I would always tell myself the same thing. And it was like, I stopped telling myself that. So it was like, now I was going to the subconscious and switching that stuff. And that's why I always, help my own clients. I'm like, look, there's a belief down there, if you don't know where it is, like, obviously we'll get there, but there's a belief that somebody told you something when you were a kid, or, maybe it was some type of, just a normal fear that you had that you're still telling yourself to this day. And that was kind of like where I started. When you said writing, I love journaling and writing stuff down, especially now because I can go back and I actually can see and prove to myself, because my ego is telling me, well, no, that's not true. That didn't happen, or you can't do that, or whatever. And it's just like, yes, it is. Like I can now read it because I wrote it. Like it was me that wrote it,
Yeah,
even though
yeah,
I've
yeah.
had those experiences. So I would be curious to hear, and I'm sure the listeners would too, is when you said writing, what kind of writing technique do you have people do?
Well, it's very intuitive to start with. So
Okay.
the program that I have is it's called Embrace Your Grief and Be the Author of Your Own Healing. And
Oh,
it's over 5 months, 5 to 6 months. And it is very intuitive in the beginning. The first 8 to 10 weeks is very deep diving, very kind of, it's looking more at the therapies so that we really get to the core of the problem. And then
Okay.
the next 3 months is I created lots of writing exercises that tap into your subconscious, that go beyond what you really think, go beyond what you really believe.
Yeah.
And we always move from the head space down to the heart space where you get the true answers,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
because our head
Yeah.
is the worst enemy.
Yes.
Um, and it's where your ego is. It says, oh, you don't really want to write that. Yes,
Yes.
you do. But
Yeah.
you see what? So nobody knows the questions until I actually say them. Nobody knows the exercises
Oh,
until I actually start working with them. And then I start adding, because my program is tailored to that unique person, because I
okay.
use spirituality, I work with the angels a lot. They tell me stuff, I channel that in, and then I'll ask them, what questions do I need to ask to really get to the problem? And they'll say, ask them this.
Yeah.
So there are specific questions that there's a 3 months worth of exercises, but within that, I then add in everything that's specific to that person. And then when I work with the writing exercises, they don't know them until I actually ask them. And then
Oh,
they're coming from
interesting.
their heart space instead of their head.
Right. Because the heart
Because,
knows the answers.
yeah, the heart knows everything. The heart space is your best friend, your head is your worst enemy.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
your head is, um, it's where your self protection is. It's always in self preservation mode. So if you know the questions beforehand, your brain is already saying, oh, I don't know if I want to answer that one right. Oh, no, no. If you really answer that honestly, that's going to hurt you too much. Or if you answer that way, then you can kind of skip the feeling that's going to come with that.
Right.
Does that make sense? So
Yes.
so that's why I tend not to tell people anything
Right.
on
Yeah.
that score
Yeah.
until I'm sitting with the client and I can intuitively channel in, check in, connect in with what's going on for them, and then we work from that.
Wow.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
gonna say that it's definitely, and I'll make sure that you that in the show notes here on YouTube and in the actual podcast, they people can make sure that they can connect with you. I think
yeah.
that's amazing when it's like writing therapy because it's more of like not journaling from like what you're going through or answering questions. I feel like sometimes that could be very surface level because
Sure.
I notice when I do that with my clients, I'm like, these are 3 questions. I want you to reflect on them, in meditation, ask them before you go to bed. Your subconscious will tell you, ask your heart, all that stuff. They won't give me, I've noticed that. And that's actually interesting that you say that because maybe I won't do that for home, like for them to take and do at like home. I should do it in a session because I feel like maybe I will be able to help them more if, you know,
Yeah,
they don't
absolutely.
get to give me surface level stuff and I'm reading it and I'm like,
Yeah,
this is not, and I'm not judgmental about it, but I know it's deeper. It's like
mhm,
because of blah blah blah. And then I'm just like, no, like where it comes from is like, oh well that my boyfriend did this or like my boyfriend did that. And I was like, but what childhood wound is it bringing up? Like what is it triggering? Because your boyfriend wasn't with you in your childhood. I mean, maybe he was. I don't know. But he probably wasn't. He's not the reason why. Or it could be like past life stuff, like
sure.
stuff that you've carried through lifetimes that, you need as wisdom, not to hold you back. So it's
Yeah,
interesting that I've done this all my like when I was going through this and now currently going through the shamanic path. It's very intense. But it's like I needed to do this for my own deep healing because I was holding like a lot. I have a deep shadows for myself, like past lives and stuff that I know I need to work through. And I was very like resistant to it for, I don't
yeah,
know what reason,
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
probably fear, maybe. I don't know. But I feel like it's really helping my clients too through healing sessions because I'm incorporating that into uh, the shamanic path, which is very interesting too.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That
Yeah.
does sound amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, with the writing, it is it's one of the things so that it saved me.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 weeks after Jack died, I sat there doodling, and I just started writing a story, and within a few months, that was my first novel.
Oh, wow.
So it was like I know the power of words, and I know the power of writing. So that's what I wanted to offer my clients, is that you're going to work with me over 5, 6 months. And at the end of it, you're going to have your grief journey in front of you. And what you do with that, we can then create a book if you want to. If you ever
Right.
wanted to
Yeah.
have your own book on your own bookshelf, and it's for your own healing. And from that, you can look back on that, or you can share it with friends or whatever, or with the world. Why not? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually what I'm doing at the moment. I've actually been asked to become one of 100 Voices for Women to
Oh,
write my
wow.
memoirs. So,
Awesome. That's so exciting.
so I'm actually doing what I offer my clients. I'm doing that. So because I know how brilliant writing is.
Yeah.
If you can get it out of your head and get it out on paper, you can work with that.
Yes.
You can heal with that. I actually did a live last week, a little workshop on sleep, because a lot of grieving people, they struggle with sleep
Yes.
for various reasons.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the first exercises I do, it's teaching them to just get it out of your head. Ask yourself, at the point that you are thinking of going to sleep,
Mhm.
ask yourself the question that is prominent in your mind.
Right.
Write it down. And that could be anything from, you know, I can't stop thinking about my loved one. What should I do about it? Or um, I I hate not sleeping. What can I, it can be absolutely anything. And then for 10 minutes, set a timer for 10 minutes and write. Just move the pen across and just allow it to flow.
Yes.
Now, people say to me, I was asked quite a lot of questions last week about, well, why don't you just let it flow until it finishes? Because after about 10 minutes, you'll start to go in up and back into your brain.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You start
Yeah.
to think about it. You start to, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Oh, maybe I can add this. No, 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 no. You've gone back into your head then. Forget that. As soon
Yeah.
as you start thinking, oh, I should add that, stop.
Yeah.
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 Get it
Yes.
out of your head. And then I talk them through some gentle exercises. And then I offer them a half-hour meditation. And people have been coming back to me all week going, oh my God, I've had the best sleep ever. I've had,
Yeah.
yeah, because you got it out of your head first.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
simple exercise like that. So everyone listening, if you want details on that, I can, get in touch. It's easy,
Yes.
you know?
I was going to say, I want to piggyback on when you said, the question, I never really knew why I asked this question to people, but I ask it to myself all the time, especially if I'm having trouble sleeping.
Mhm.
I always tell people, like, especially in my magnetic message program that I'm building right now, I ask people, what is keeping you up at night? And I never really know. People ask me, why are you asking me that? And I was like, well, I don't know why I'm asking that. But then I realized that is what's holding you back. That is what your body or your heart wants you to heal. What's keeping you up at night? Like, that's literally when you said that before you go to sleep, to ask yourself, like, why can't I sleep? Or, what do I need to know about? That's like that theta, that right before you go to sleep, that's your subconscious kind of bringing up
Yeah,
um,
yeah, definitely.
what, or it's like you have nightmares about something, or, I'm a lucid dreamer. So it's like sometimes I wake up, I'm like, I'm tired. Like, I just want to go to sleep, or like sleep, but it's more of like I'm dreaming all night for like
Yeah,
whatever,
sure.
for
Yeah.
whatever reason. So yeah, that exercise that you had just explained, I think that would be like really powerful,
And what I'd like to say on that, I mean, that's a very good question to ask. What is keeping me up at night? But for me, that seems a bit broad, if you don't mind me saying. Try
Oh
to
yeah.
be more specific. Try and, get deeper into it. What is it? Be more specific with the
Right.
question. You know, am I scared of the nightmares I might have? Or am I scared that I won't wake up? or am I not sleeping because so and so's not lying next to me anymore? It's try and be
Yeah.
just that little bit more specific, and it's about just taking a breath and breathing into it, and
Right.
the question will be there straight away. It'll pop into your head if you
Right.
allow it to come. you
Yes.
know
Yes.
and
That's
that is the one question you need to ask,
yes.
definitely.
Especially if people have trauma around nighttime. So it's like, were they
Oh
left
gosh,
at
yes.
home at nighttime? A lot of my sexual abuse happened at nighttime. So, it was, or when I was going through the first part of my spiritual awakening, it's like spirit has you up those hours because you need to get messages, you need to have downloads for whatever reason at that time. Like,
Yeah,
it's just like, so I was always journaling and writing those down because it was stuff that I needed for my own guidance. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
people say, I'm up between like 2 and 4. I'm like, oh, it's probably, you could be getting, light codes, new downloads. Like there's a reason why you always wake up at 444 or like the different numbers, like those
Oh,
means.
the angel numbers, yeah,
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah. I was going to say, I work a lot with the angels too. And, it's usually if it's with a client that I need to work with, it's like they will, it's funny. And my boyfriend always says, last night, there was just some conflict going on. And I feel like I tell them when they're here, I feel like somebody is like touching my arm. And he just randomly said before we went to bed, he said, I feel like somebody just touched my arm. And I was like, oh, it's probably one of my spirit guides, or it's probably like the angels to say, like, I'm here and it's okay to go to sleep, that kind of thing. Right. So it's like
Yeah,
that reassurance I feel like that we need, that gives us that okay and that permission it's okay to go to sleep. Like you're not
yeah,
reliving, you're not going to have to relive your trauma constantly, because I feel like that's a lot of the times for me, and I think the other people listening could, and you as well, that's when those thoughts stick in, like, that stuff that you've been through. It's for whatever
yeah,
reason, it happens when your mind's calm and you want to go to sleep. You want to relax.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
no, not here,
The
sister.
brain is the brain is a bug that time. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
So
yeah, sleep is
is
yeah,
important for healing. Yes.
absolutely. It is
Yeah.
very important, but having the right sleep, one of the things that I was talking about last week in this live was society puts so much pressure on people on a conscious and subconscious level.
Yeah.
So, and I've been brought up with, well, once you hit adulthood, you should have between 7 and 9 hours sleep. And if you don't get it, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
You know, I mean, how many people can relate to that? Oh, you wake up, go, oh my God, I only had 6 hours sleep last night. And I feel so tired. Well, you've already changed your mindset into
Right.
believing that you're not going to make the day, or you're going to be tired. You're telling yourself the stories already.
Yes.
So change that. Change it to, whatever sleep I have is good for me. My body will work out what it needs.
Right.
So sometimes I'll have 4 to 6, 7 hours sleep, whatever. Sometimes I'll only have an hour, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
my body will work it out. And
Yes.
then another few days and I might have 10 hours sleep, whatever. I trust my body and I listen to my body all the time. If I need to rest during the day, I'll rest during the day.
Yes.
I love afternoon cat naps.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
they're
I
just
was
great.
gonna say I'm a projector, and after finding out I'm a projector in human design, I'm not sure if you know about much about human design, but I'm, projectors need to sleep. And it's funny, I made this meme one day and it was like, projectors are here to take naps and rest a lot. So it's like I work for 2 hours or 3 hours and I love to take naps. But when I was working, in my 9 to 5 job, I was a high risk OB ultrasound tech. So I worked 10 hours, I worked 12 hours. I was exhausted. I worked 2 to 3 jobs. And it was like, I just wish I could take a nap right now. So now it's like, 2 o'clock in the afternoon or like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm not, sometimes I miss when my daughter would take naps, because I would just take a nap right with her, because I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm tired. And it's like and those 2 hours of like my body just resting, I have energy for like the rest of the day.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I know some people can't nap. But I'm like, I think you're weird if you can't take a nap. Like all of us should take a
I,
nap.
do you know, well, do you know, it took me a long time to learn how to,
Yeah,
you
I was
know,
going to say
and to trusting your body is the biggest thing, because
yes.
society has a lot to answer for. I mean, the amount of pressure that they put on people, and you can't do this, you must, you have to behave like that, you have to say, honestly, forget it all, you know, just be your own
Yes.
self. That's what I say. If
Yes.
you listen to your own body. And
Yes.
I say to people, because people will say to me, well, I work a 9 to 5, or I work a 10-hour shift, or I work, okay then, but you're not working every single moment of that day. There are
Right.
moments where you can sit down for 5 minutes and do some breathing exercises and bring some oxygen back into your body. And
Yeah.
then that relaxes your shoulders, it relaxes your body and your mind. That is a rest, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Christ, I've had people go and sit in the toilet, right?
Yeah.
If you go and sit in the toilet and have that 5, 10 minutes, who cares what people think? If they think you've got diarrhea, leave them to it. Doesn't matter what they think, you know? Just
Right. Yeah.
sit in the bathroom and take some deep breaths and just
Yeah.
toilets are actually quite comfortable places to sit, you know? They're
Yeah,
not
because it's
bad.
quiet, nobody's
And it's
bothering
quiet,
you.
you know? And I've had women sort of saying, well, can I sing? Sing. If you want to sing, if you find singing relaxing,
Yeah.
sing. Go and sing in the bathroom, you know?
Yeah.
Let it, because it's beautiful echo. Why not? And just sing and just
Right.
allow that rest, that
Yeah.
that gentleness to fall on you like rain, you know? Just allow it to be.
Yes.
But it's the problem people tend to have all the time is they think they should. They think they have to. They
Yeah.
have to comply with rules. Who the hell made up these rules? If I ever meet them, I'm going to kick them to death. You know, it's
I say that all the time. It's funny that you just said that because I'm like, when somebody says, "Well, you should do that," I'm like, "Who's should and who's they?
yeah,
Like, who's
yeah,
that?" Because
yeah,
I always tell them,
absolutely.
"You should just shut the fuck up." That's what I usually say. I'm like, maybe you should just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
word
it's
should
like,
be taken out of your
oh, I
vocabulary.
hate the word should.
Yeah,
I hate the
very
word should.
triggering.
Yeah, you know, I always, you know, whenever I hear clients saying, well, I should behave that way, or I should have got
Yeah,
over my grief by now,
yeah,
or I should be doing, and I say, okay, how about we change it to I would like to,
right.
or
Yes.
is this good for me if, or,
Yeah,
you know, it's about just changing your words. Words have power.
yeah,
And if you use these rules words, I call them, these society's words, you add so much pressure on a situation where it's already stressful, it's already tense, you're
yeah.
already going through trauma. So why are you being your worst enemy? Be your best friend,
Right.
you know?
I
That's
think that.
that's what people get when they work with me. You become your best friend. Love
Yeah.
yourself enough.
Keep looking for your best friend, your lover, all that. That's you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Be your best friend. Be your own lover. Be who you would love to be with you, you know, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So we are so quick to look after everybody else, tell them all the right things that they want to hear, and we're always there for our friends and our family who need
yeah,
help and support.
yeah.
And yet when it comes to us and giving it to ourselves, we
Hmm.
start to question it. We start to wonder why. We start to um, maybe only give ourselves a little bit of healing there and here and there. You know, it's not consistent,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
so why? If you can give it, you can receive it.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
it has to be a two-way thing, and sadly, I do meet a lot of people who just don't receive. They won't, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I think like speaking about the receiving and giving and all that stuff, I feel like, for me, it was more of my wounded feminine energy or wounded masculine, whatever, like at the time, whatever that was, and I think, to be able to receive now, like I'm a giver, most of us are like, I give, give, give. And then, my cup would be empty, and it's just like, I can't give anymore. And that person that I was giving to it wasn't equal energy. So it's like, well, I'm expecting something from somebody that's not even able to give that to me. Right. So it's like, I then was like, well, I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to stop giving it to that person and give it to myself. And then we have matching energy. It's myself versus myself. So it's like, and understanding that kind of like theory and logic, I was like, wow. So if I stop giving it to people that don't like deserve it and just give it to myself, I have all the energy that I need.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
And
crazy how that works.
well, yeah, but one of the things that my clients will hear me say all the time is you cannot give from an empty vessel.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
can't do it.
Yeah.
It's an impossibility, and the other thing that I sort of, if people don't get that, then I'll use this one. Imagine yourself on a plane, and the plane's got a few problems and all the oxygen falls down.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you start giving the oxygen to everybody else.
Yeah.
What's happening to you?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to go unconscious.
Yeah.
You've got no oxygen.
Right.
So you're gone. You're finished. While everyone else is okay.
Yeah.
That's not how life works. You have to look after yourself. You have to love yourself first, and
Right.
then you can send the love and the healing and looking after everybody else.
Yeah.
And sadly, within grief, people are trying to still give the oxygen away to everybody else when they need it first.
Yeah.
Because we as mothers, obviously, if our child was in danger, we're trying to save them first. But
Right.
if we haven't saved ourselves first, we can't save them.
Right.
If that makes sense,
Yeah. I
So
love I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, go on. The
I was going to
vessel.
say, I love that the example of the oxygen. I
Yeah.
always said to I think I was talking to a client maybe or a friend, and I said, here's the thing, society tells you one thing, but it's okay for like, you're on an airplane and they tell you that example that you just gave us. And
Yeah.
why is it okay for that? Like, they tell you to put your mask on first. So why can't you do that in every aspect of your life? Why is that not okay? Like, why
Absolutely.
is society like telling you that's not okay? You got to do everything for everybody else, your employer and this and that. And it's just like, no, I'm going to put my oxygen mask on first. And then I'm going to, if I have time or if I have the energy, I'm going to do it. So nobody else
Absolutely.
knows that
That's
answer. It's like when I
yeah.
ask that, nobody, I'm like, I don't know. Like, because it's not true. Like, that isn't a truth that you need to ever go by. The truth is, you just need to worry about yourself, and then let that person work. If you want to help them, then help them. If you don't,
Yeah.
fine. They'll figure out a way to help themselves.
Well,
Right? Like,
the
most of
thing
the time
is,
we do. Yeah.
the thing what I find is that what is right for you is right for everybody else.
Right.
It has a knock-on effect. So when you're in a good place, your
Mhm.
energy vibrates outward, and then everyone else feels okay. You know what it's like when you walk into a room and everyone's smiling, you feel that energy, you pick it
Yes.
up, you smile.
Yeah.
A smile
Yeah.
goes a long way, is absolutely true.
Yeah.
So that's what I try and teach my clients is that if we can get you to a place of feeling good and raised vibration, high vibrational, and you're healing,
Yeah.
then that will have a knock-on effect. The positivity will have, it'll radiate outward. So then you can start looking after everybody else if you feel that you still need to. But the
Right.
problem that people come up with all the time is the first word they use is, well, isn't that selfish? Well,
Yeah.
where did that come from? Who decided that? Looking after
Yeah.
yourself and allowing your own healing is somehow selfish. Or the other one I get is, well, if I grieve too long, then somehow that's, it's not fair on everybody else. Who decided that?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you grieve as long as you need. The problems come if it becomes complicated, but that's something else. That's way down the line.
Right.
If
Yeah.
if you're not dealing with your grief, then yeah, we need to have a chat. But
Right. Yeah.
the stuff that people come up with to make excuses for not healing is outstanding.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, forget about the fact that people won't invest in their own health. That's something else that
Right.
I come across a lot, you know. But the main thing is they won't invest because they don't feel their worth, that they don't
Yeah.
recognize their worth. And
Yeah.
because society has put in all these invisible rules around grief, you know, they seem to have this time frame, which I'd love to know who came up with this one. Um, Grief is roughly between 3 months to a year. Anything after that, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Well, not really, you know. Um, it comes down to what kind of grief and what kind of therapy,
Right.
what kind of support you've got and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
But what I come across a lot from people is their employers will say things like, well, do you know, it's been 4 or 5 months since so and so died. You should be over it by now. I love that one. Over it by now.
Right.
It's not a style to get over. It's not a date.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
an
a trend.
emotion. It's
Yeah.
it's a loss. It is a physical, emotional, mental loss, you know?
Or if
And
it's like
it's
the
it's
2 days was, I remember, if you like lose somebody, it was like you get 2 bereavement days, and I'm like, what the actual fuck is that? Like, what?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you have 2 days
yeah,
to go to the funeral and maybe see somebody, and then you have to go back to work, and I'm like, what?
yeah,
So that's why I'm glad that they started in the United States. They started doing like short-term, they saved your job. You didn't get paid for it, whatever, but they
yeah,
saved your job for the 3 months, because not that 3 months, if you need to take off that much, or at least if you need to take off some days and not it be penalized for it. I do like that they started the FMLA, just because you can still work, but there's some days that you can't. And sometimes it's so paralyzing as trauma that you might need to seek outside help, or you need to go to, whatever. And I do like that, but it always killed me, like especially when my grandmother died. I was in school, and it's like I couldn't miss so many days, and I was just like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I would always ask my mom, why is this like this? And she's like, it's just the way it is. And I was just like, this is so wrong. Like, this is so wrong on every level. It's just so wrong. It doesn't make
and
any
that's
sense.
it. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of come full circle, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
people do not talk about grief. So,
Yeah.
and it's an inevitable thing that's going to happen to everybody.
Yes.
Everybody dies.
Yeah.
And the first grief that you will experience is usually as a child. It could be your first pet or a grandparent or a friend or whatever. Um, and then when you move into adulthood, you know, it could be anybody, but still nobody will talk about it. So when it happens, no one knows how to deal with it, especially employers. And in the UK, again, you're given, I think it's 3 days,
Okay.
but people can't afford to have time off, you know, that they're not being paid for it. So they have to go back to
Right.
work.
Yeah.
When our son died, thankfully, my husband was working for a decent company who gave him 2 weeks off
Oh,
paid.
good. Oh,
Um,
good.
but
Yeah.
even 2 weeks, I mean, 2 weeks for
Yeah.
a dead son, that was nothing. And
Yeah.
he
That's true.
wasn't offered any therapy or anything like that. It was right, 2 weeks and you've now got to act normal.
Right.
But that's a hell of a lot of stress for somebody,
Yeah.
for anybody. And I come across these stories all the time, and it's terrifying, you know,
Yes.
what
It
people are
is.
having to deal with, putting on this face, um, you know, that and trying to act normal, whatever that means, during the
Yeah.
day. And then the employers are wondering why they can't be that, you know, why. I mean, I'll tell you a story of a wonderful thing that happened a few years ago. There was a woman, her husband had died, and she was given, I think it was up to 3 weeks off work. Um, and when she went in, the employer took her to one side and said, look, we know we've only been able to give you 3 weeks off. We know that this is going to be difficult for you. There was an old storeroom or something somewhere within this factory, and they'd cleared it out and put a few seats in there and said, look, if you need time out, you can go to that room. Just let
Oh,
us know
wow.
where you're going so we know where you are.
Right. Yeah.
And bless them, bless their hearts. I mean, they looked after her, and then someone else died, and it became known as the grief room. which they
Oh,
couldn't go and hide in all day, but they could go and have some time out if they were crying and they needed, to take some
yes.
deep breaths. They could
Yeah.
go in there and do it. And I thought, why can't other companies do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. All it takes is a little bit of compassion around grief and realizing that grief is going to hit every single person at
At
some point.
whatever time, it doesn't matter whenever it's coming. I used to,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
when I used to work and I had, my own ultrasound room. We all had, each technologist had their own room. There are so many times that I would literally break down alone in my room, and then I would have to go get a client, a patient. And it's like my face was all red. It was just like, what's wrong? And it's just like, I never really, and my lead tech she kind of knew what was going on. I did tell her, this was when I was going through my divorce, and, I was in therapy at the time. I would do, there are sometimes we had an hour break sometimes if we got finished, and I would take a nap, or I would have my therapy, or it's like I would go for a walk, or I would just sit and do whatever, like I would not do work, but it would just sit and do like whatever. And I feel like, the partners of the practice were very understanding. They, when I left to go move across the country, that kind of failed to come back, they were just very supportive, asking me if I want my job back. And it was like, what, I need to go a different path. Like it's like I kept avoiding myself. I was like thinking moving across the country was going to solve something. It was like, no, it's not going to solve anything. I'm still going to have to deal with myself, So it's like, you know, amazing how, people listening to this probably that actually still work there probably like, that is so, like, they don't probably feel that way. But for me, it was like they always had a special, like the partners had a very special place in their heart for me for whatever
Yeah.
reason. And, knowing that I was trying to do my best, came to work, never, acted, I had to put this face on that I was fine. Obviously they knew I wasn't, but, it was just like, I just tried my best, and it was exhausting. Like, it,
Oh
to the
gosh,
point
yeah.
that like I would come home to just my daughter, or just being by myself, and it was just like, it was exhausting. And I'm glad that, that shifted, because, sometimes you come home to nobody, so it's like, it's just yourself. And it's just like, if you don't fix that, you're going to have to still deal with yourself. It's like,
Yeah,
you can't
yeah,
run out you,
absolutely.
there's only so much avoiding you can do when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, I think I salute the people, that if you've got a good boss and good employer who has compassion, then
Yeah.
that's amazing. And that helps a hell of a lot when you're going through grief.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
as you've just said there, grief is exhausting enough.
Yes.
Having to pretend that you're okay is, oh, it's debilitating.
It's awful. Yes.
Yeah.
It's people now, they're just like, you say, I'm okay, or I'm not okay, but it's okay to not be okay. Right. But, it's, for me, I could never hide it. It was like something that it's like I wore it all over my body. I wore it all over my face. And it was just like, I'm just trying to get through these 10 patients that I have to do. And, it's just like they were going through stuff too. So I had to kind of put my stuff on hold and be this person for them. I had to, if they were, these clients or these patients that, came to us were high risks. There's something really life threatening. They were high risk, the child, like the baby. So it's like I had that compassion for them too. And, there's a couple times when I got the body chills when you had talked about Jack, because there was two times in my entire 12 years of doing ultrasounds was when I had found a stillborn. There's no
Yeah.
heartbeat. It was
Yeah.
a full grown baby that, and it was like that, the side of me, having to the mom coming in every week and showing the heartbeat, to then me getting anxiety because I'm like, there's no heartbeat. And
Yeah.
I'm not the tech. I had enough experience that I was not the tech that's going to leave this person in the room and
Mhm.
not tell them and go get the doctor. Now at my practice, you were allowed to do that. Like, you were allowed to tell them. I just said, here's the heart, and it's not, like, there was a way that I said it, and I would say, I'm not going to leave you, but I just need to go. I need to go yell for the doctor. I'm going to stay here with you. And so you're not in the room by yourself. Like, now
Yeah.
what? Um, and I feel like that feeling, when you had talked about that, it was like, it brought me back to that day. I remember, standing at my machine and doing that ultrasound. It was like somebody that I seen weekly. And it was just devastating to the point that, like, I was holding her, she was on the floor crying. Obviously our doctor is very compassionate, very, this is what we need to do, all that stuff. So yeah, it's crazy to, you know having to, hopefully if you wherever the doctor that you had was very supportive of you when that happened, because I definitely haven't experienced that two times actually.
Yeah, the doctor was okay. The nurses were better, they were
Yeah.
more compassionate at the
Yeah.
time. But once I'd had Jack, he was whisked away. I managed to hold him for 10 minutes before he was whisked away. I never saw him again, even though I begged them to let me have him.
Yeah.
And all I was told was, well, you're young enough, you'll have another one.
Oh.
That was it. That I wasn't offered anything, no support, no nothing.
Oh wow.
Which was another thing, which was why that spurred me on to say no other woman should have to go through this alone.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
They're supportive. Yeah. They're very, they'll be like they're very, like, they have a whole team for postpartum and stuff for that. They're very, because I actually had very, very severe postpartum depression.
Right.
Honestly, I think it was more of like, of course, they just wanted to give me a pill. I have to do this. I have to take this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to therapy. So there was a different type of therapy that I did for that. And I feel like I did that through my pregnancy. It was my situation. It was with my ex-husband. So it's like, it was my abuse system or
Yeah.
abuse situation, and just, those thoughts coming up of like, I'm not going to be a good mother. Why did I picked a shitty partner? And it's all like, now understanding that back, understanding just the circle of life, and just everything that I understand now. It's, she picked both of us. There's a reason why she picked me, and there's a reason why she picked, her father to come to earth. So,
Yeah.
obviously she needed something from either one of us. So it gave me so much more like, okay, so it's not me that has to take that blame, because I took the blame of like, sorry that I gave you such a shitty father, but it was like, no, she picked him, that she
Yeah.
had the choice to come here, just like all of us, even though a lot of us don't believe that we all choose to come here for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can remember some of my past lives, so I've been
Yes.
quite
Yeah. And you
busy.
don't understand that until you have your past lives, right?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just that we're not born with awareness. I always say to people, they're like, well, how would I know that? I'm like, you wouldn't. You're not born with awareness. You're shown your entire life in your mom, but then the memories are gone. Like you're not shown that. There's a reason why, because how that life would be so easy if we just knew everything.
Well, that's it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
this is sort of just shifting to something else, because I also do a lot of angel channeling and angel
Yeah.
card readings and things, and
Yeah.
people say to me, "Oh, can you tell me my future?" No, it's not my job to tell you your future. It's
Right.
nobody's job to tell you your future.
Yeah. The
Anyone
angels
who
aren't going to
sits
even
there
tell you
saying,
that.
anyone who says, "Oh, you're going to meet a so and so stranger," you're going to go, "No,
Yeah.
it's for you to live it.
Yes.
It's
And
for you to
experience it.
experience
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
embrace it."
Yeah.
In all its glory, in the good times, the shitty time, everything,
Yeah.
embrace it.
Yeah.
And because they're all learnings.
Yeah.
And, people have said to me, of all the horrors that I've endured, they said, well, what would you change? I said, I wouldn't change a thing,
Yeah. You're right.
not one thing, because the loss of my son created this. It set me on my journey to be an author, to be a grief therapist. It set me on my journey. I wouldn't have had my daughter if Jack had
Right.
been born, because he had so many issues.
Yeah.
I have my beautiful daughter now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything, because everything that happened to me created this strong, powerful, high vibrational goddess that you see before you. So why
Yes.
would I change? Hell
Right.
no.
I love that. I love that so much. So, as a grief guru, what advice would you give somebody who is currently struggling with grief? I know we talked about this before, but with grief or loss. Loss.
Okay, well, it's very important that one, you forgive yourself. That's your first thing.
Mm.
Forgive yourself um, for however you're going to react, for however you're going to behave, however you're going to think. People are so harsh on themselves when they're grieving. That's their first thing. So
Yeah.
forgive yourself straight off the bat. And then it's about allowing the emotions to come. And they're not always going to be easy to ride, but allow them to come. Don't try and hold them back.
Yes.
If you have to sort of say, just hang on a minute, I need time to go and just cry my eyes out for 5 minutes, then you go and do it. Go and find space. Even if it's, do you know what I do sometimes? I sit in my car, put some music on loud and scream. I need to
Yeah.
do that. Fine,
Yeah.
go and do it.
Yeah.
And then if you can, talk about it. Talk to somebody, whether that's a therapist, me, or whether that's a
Yeah.
good friend, or whether that's a family member, or whether that's a work colleague. If they can actively listen to you without trying to tell you advice,
Yeah.
and just sit there and be your mirror or whatever it is that you need, then that's great. Find that. And if some people like to go to group therapy, that helps a lot of people. But it's about reaching out. Being proactive in your grief is very important. Don't just sit in the corner rocking yourself to death and hoping it's all going to go away. It's not. you know it
Yes.
you have to embrace it, which is why I called my program Embrace Your Grief and Be the Author of Your Healing, because you have to feel it to be able to heal it.
I love that. Feel it.
Yeah.
Feel it to be able to heal it. So
Yeah,
how
definitely.
can people get in contact with you? I'll also make sure your links are in.
Well, I have my own website, and one page is dedicated to Grief Guru,
Okay.
but mainly I am on Facebook.
Okay.
I have a personal page, Paula Roscoe, Grief Guru, and the other one is a private page for women. Um,
Okay.
and I'm also, yeah, so they're the main things to get hold of me on there.
Okay.
Oh, I've
Perfect.
also got a YouTube channel. I keep forgetting I've got a YouTube channel. Yeah, but I do lots of little tiny videos as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll make sure that everybody, the listeners, can get a hold of you that way.
Yeah, I'll
So,
throw all the links at you.
yes, thank you so much. So, thanks so much for joining us today with Paula on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe. You can leave a review and share with somebody that you feel that will gain knowledge from listening to this episode. Stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next time.